on this rainy Wednesday afternoon. So good afternoon, crew San Antonio. Certainly very pleased to welcome all of you to our first virtual tour. We today are going to highlight, it's going to be an urban redevelopment project, which proved to be a pretty monumental makeover as the abandoned St. John Seminary was converted into a mixed income multifamily community, and has really become quite a catalyst for change in one of San Antonio's oldest neighborhoods out on the south side. I trust you will find the project's appreciation, I should say, for both the project's architectural as well as its cultural significance. So I ask that you all just sit back, relax as we wind our day down. Maybe pour yourself a drink. I might have two after my technical challenges there. As we're going to hear from the inspiration behind the revitalization and the preservation of the project. And then we'll journey through history. So we take a virtual tour of the extraordinary property. If you have any questions along the way, please put them in the chat feature. And if we have time permitting, we will get to them at the end. And then also we do ask, just maybe for bandwidth purposes, if you don't mind turning off your video and muting just throughout the presentation, that would be great. Sandy Lenz has been very instrumental in putting this presentation together. And so I'm going to turn it over and invite Sandy to introduce our presenters today. So Sandy.
Hello, everyone. Glad you could join us. And I am the Business Development Marketing Manager at Lopez Architects. So being from an architect firm, I was especially interested in touring this project for its historical preservation and adaptive reuse functions of turning this wonderful historic seminary into a vital development for apartments in the Mission Reach area of San Antonio, which I adore this area. You can literally walk to the Mission Concepcion right around the corner from this property. It's just a gorgeous property. And it was, we are very honored to have the developers of this property with us today. And Victor Miramontes, he is the managing partner of Mission DG, and he will be our main speaker today. And he's joined by David Richardson, who's the director of acquisitions at Mission DG. And Celine Williams, who's the regional property manager of the Lincoln Property Company. And now I'm going to hand it over to Victor.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I want to thank everyone that's watching this presentation. It is a first for a lot of us. I want to congratulate all the folks that have been working on this from the crew side. I've been impressed with the quality of what you've been doing. And I believe it's the way of the future, at least during the pandemic, but I think it also will spill over into the future where a lot of these presentations will occur virtually. And the key to it is having prepared, and I promise you, the folks that put this together were well prepared, and we've been working on this for a little while. If you want, you can start, and I'll just talk over the video stuff here. I'm going to give a little background on, first of all, myself and how we got involved, and then the Mission DG structure. And the reason why I'm going to give you a background on myself and Henry Cisneros, who's my partner for many years now, is it puts in context the reason why this project is so important to us, and not just to us individually, but as a community. And we do have some drone footage here that puts this all kind of, puts it in a place, locates it. I hope it isn't too much bandwidth issue here. But anyway, that is the primary building, and to the right, you'll see it later, is Mission Concepcion. It's literally adjacent to the structure. But while you look at this, I'm going to give you a little background on Henry and myself. We basically have come back to San Antonio, and we're focusing on affordable housing. Henry and I teamed up again in 2000. We formed a company called City View in LA. We had about $4 billion worth of assets, 100 projects, all institutional. About 5 years ago, Henry and I both decided that we were going to make room for the future generations, future executives of City View. And so I'm still the vice chairman of the company, still on investment committees, but Henry now are focused on stuff here in San Antonio almost exclusively. So 5 years ago or so, Henry saw the work that the predecessor mission was doing with Mark Tolley and with David Richardson and a few other folks. And this is before Southtown became popular to the level it is now, and all the development you see around the southern part of downtown. There was very few developments happening back then. So that's why we got involved. And this project got my attention in particular because of the historic aspect of it and the fact that this neighborhood has been an urban population, has been an urban center for 300 years, literally. So I'm going to give you a little background as we go through this, and then we'll get into more of the property. So if you bear with me, I have some notes here that we drafted. There's an article that's in the Novogradic monthly or quarterly magazine, which we'll give a reference to later, or we'll post it. But basically, this property was urbanized in 1731, when the missions, the 3 missions that were first located in East Texas near Nacogdoches, had been there for 30 years. They moved south for whatever reason. I don't know the reason they moved back, or after 41 years. So they were 90. So the Mission Concepcion itself was moved here in 1731. And basically it was a network of acequias, of year-round agriculture, water, and that's why the missions of San Antonio have survived for so long, because this has been a very vibrant year-round area in a very arid state. So we felt it important that heritage of this property live and become visible in this redevelopment. The actual structures you see there were built in about 100 years ago. And they were at St. John's Seminary. It was St. John's pre-seminary high school and seminary. And so what we did is we took these old structures, and at the very end of this presentation, you'll see some before and after pictures. This building almost burned down, and you'll see how bad it was. But basically, this is, when you add up all the money, this is expensive projects. It's almost a $40 million project. It's about $30 million in construction, another $10 million of reserves and bond allocations, a bunch of stuff. We're going to build about, we have built 228 Class A units, of which I think 60, or Celine will help me on this later. I can't remember the exact number of repurposed units. 75% of the units are going to be, are affordable, and 25% are market rate. We can get into those details a little later. But again, the reason why Henry and I got so attracted to this is because this neighborhood has been an active neighborhood for almost 300 years, and it still is very vibrant. However, it's gone in decline over the past 20, 30 years, and it needed a catalyst, which this has already become. And Dave in a bit will discuss all the different partners, but this is also located in the Mission Reach. It's part of the historical park, National Historical Register, I believe. It's part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So there's a lot of history behind this entire area. In fact, Dave, why don't you give a list of all the folks that were participants in this, because this is the most complex transaction I've actually done in my entire career, and I've done a couple of pretty tough ones, but this one was very complex.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Victor. Yeah, so this is a labor of love, 5 years in the making. Obviously, the Archdiocese of San Antonio, the Archbishop still owns the property. We negotiated a long-term land lease with the Archbishop, and obviously needed a lot of other partners to make this happen. Most notably, the San Antonio Housing Trust. We had worked with the City of San Antonio Office of Historic Preservation, who were very proud. We won the People's Choice Power of Preservation Award from them last year at prom. We had worked with the National Park Service. Obviously, it's a historic landmark, UNESCO World Heritage Convention. The day after this was originally approved by HDRC, it was designated UNESCO World Heritage Site, which brought in a whole nother layer of complexity. The San Antonio Conservation Society was involved, the Housing Trust, Public Facility Corporation, which we helped form, is a partner. And most importantly, the neighborhood. I cannot tell you how many outreach meetings and community involvement meetings. And eventually what it boiled down to is the neighborhood wanted to see it happen. There were some other folks from don't necessarily live in the neighborhood who just wanted it to be a giant park. We decided that it would be much better used as a mixed income, affordable housing project for workforce housing families. The mission of Mission DG is to provide mixed income, workforce, and senior affordable housing for Texas in general, and most specifically South and Central Texas. So we had a lot of help on this one. The architects is B&A Architecture. Big Red Dog, who's now WGI Engineering, did the civil engineering. NRP Construction, most of you are familiar with NRP in town. This was the very first project they built for someone other than themselves. They're building 2 others for us currently. We also had a lot of help with the financing. IBC Bank provided us the construction loan to get this thing done. 42 Equity provided the low-income housing tax credit equity, the LIHTC equity. Monarch Private Capital provided the historic and state and federal historic tax credits. All that went into getting this done. And at the end of the day, you have to have a takeout. So we ended up working with Bellwether Enterprise to get a 35-year takeout. Basically, it's called a Fannie MTAB, which is a Fannie Mae tax-exempt bond. You put it all together, and as Victor mentioned, it's well over $40 million to get this project done, but we're very proud to have finally gotten it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go back to the reason why I highlighted that Henry and I have been partners, and we came back and we were looking to do something. At CityView, we've done a lot of very nice projects, primarily on the coastal region of California, very expensive projects, typically $70 million to $100 million a pop. Very nice, but we never were able to do a seniors project or an affordable project, and that troubled us. And when I say affordable, I'm talking about really working families, the teachers, firemen, policemen, people who just have a good job, but housing costs are just getting out of control, especially in the West Coast. San Antonio is still within reach, but it's getting tougher and tougher here. So this was important because it allowed us to come in and revitalize an area or be part of a revitalization, because I don't want to take credit for the neighborhood as a whole. In fact, one of the things I was hoping would happen, that we would be a catalyst for activity around us. Catty corner to this property, I just saw that there is a church that's been in the neighborhood for 30, 40 years. They just moved across the street from us, and they're revitalizing an old strip club. So I kind of like the fact that the old strip club now is a church.
Yeah.
So that's happening right now. The neighborhood, I literally went with a number of our folks, knocked door to door to all the neighbors adjacent to this property, and we invited them to a VIP early showing of the property, so because they'd watched this for years, and we wanted them to be the first in out of respect for the neighborhood. That's one of our calling cards. We need to weave these projects into neighborhoods. We're not going to come in and say where the cat's meow. The neighborhood is. We're merely adding to its future, and hopefully this project will be here for 50 to 100 years. We have a 75-year lease with the Archdiocese. So while it's been a super difficult transaction, we are actually very proud of where we're at. It's a gorgeous property. It's got a lot of land on it. Most of it we can't even dig down under because it's all historic. There's a part of the mission wall is in the front of the building, so we can't dig down in that area at all. It was very expensive to have the archaeologists there, so we avoided a lot of the archaeological costs by just leaving the entire front of the property untouched. Let me hand this off a little bit now over to Celine and Freddie, who are with Lincoln, and they're doing the day-to-day, and they can give you some stories about the property, the units, I'll give you more details on the units, and the people. That's the most important part. So Celine and Freddie.
Thank you, Victor. So yeah, we are excited to be in the neighborhood. The neighborhood is excited to have us here. We're excited to see what's building around it. Like Victor said, there was a vacant building that was next door to us that was kind of unsightly. So it's exciting to see that they're doing improvements and are making a nice church there that our residents hopefully can participate in. So we do have 228 units. we have 42 total that are in the 3 historic buildings that you saw in the video and the drone footage. And then we have 186 that are in those new buildings that are like in this photo here. They consist of studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. In those new buildings, it's 1 and 2 bedrooms. And in the historic, there's studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. In those historic, there's like 20 different floor plans. They're all very unique, beautiful, huge floor plans that have granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, 15-foot ceilings. Some have crown molding, stained glass windows, and things like that. Just bring a lot of character that you don't really see in this area at all. So it's very unique. We get a lot of interest because it's just so different. We have 176 tax credit low-income units that are predominantly at 60% of the median income, and then 52 market units. And then we do have a handful, 9 units that are designated for those that are at extremely low income, which is at 30% of AMI. I'm going to hand it off to Freddie. Oh, our occupancy right now, I wrote that down. We've been leasing, I have leasing rock stars here. So we're 36% occupied and we're 51% pre-leased. So we're excited. We just beat the 50% mark to be pre-leased. And so we've had a lot of interest, a lot of traffic. We were worried with the pandemic that it would slow down our leasing, but people are still moving, and this is a hot spot of the city right now. So we have a lot of people in the neighborhood that are excited of the improvement, but we also have a lot of people moving to the neighborhood, not only from other places in San Antonio, but from out of state and other areas of the country. So we have seen a lot of interest, a lot of diverse, but we've seen a lot of people that are just from the neighborhood that are excited to be here. So Freddie can kind of speak to a little bit more about the residents that we have.
Position where we are getting interest from all over town, even out of town, from out of town. In the beginning, as well as now, we are getting interest from people that have lived in the neighborhood for many, many years. We actually have one resident who's lived in the neighborhood for right around 50 years, from what I understand. And I actually spoke to her a little bit more in depth. Her dad actually sold fruit and vegetables in at one of the markets, and whatever he had left over at the end of the day, he would donate it to the church next door. So we have the interest is, like I said, from all over, and I think being that we're almost like a magnet to these places like churches, like that church that's coming up next door. I did speak briefly to the people that are in charge of that construction site, and I want to say that the people that are actually going to run the church, and they're excited. They're excited about being as close to the mission and to the property. I have had some residents already talk about having that church right there to go to, at any time. We're just so close. We are close to downtown, and I mean, I've had residents and applicants as well say, "Wow, I thought it's like we're on the north side now." Because, way back when, you had to go to the north side to go to the cool spots, but we're to that spot now, and people are just interested in seeing what is going on. I've had people just come in to come take a look. Yeah. Because they didn't realize this was even here, or they were wondering what was going to happen to this place. A lot of people thought this place was going to get torn down. They didn't think that it was going to turn out what it turned out to be. So there's a lot of excitement from people that lived in the neighborhood, as well as people that had no idea where they were.
All right, Fred, could you pause the video just for a second, because I want to go back to that last picture of the before and after. Sorry, Freddie. Thank you. Go ahead, Freddie.
All right. So those are the I think those are the greatest things, is that people are just coming out just to take a look and see what's happening. We're maybe not the new kid on the block, but maybe the new kid that maybe went away for a little while and came back. And it's been resurrected in a way that I think a lot of people are just surprised to the difference. I mean, look at the pictures, the now and then and now. It's just unbelievable. So we have a lot of interest, and we're happy. We're happy to see that.
Feel free to send people our way.
Yeah.
We're touring by appointment. That's why we have our map. So we're ready.
We are
Let me
ready.
jump in again. That picture that was posted showed how close this was to burning down. This property is a gorgeous property, but the Archdiocese had no way of funding these improvements. Literally, we have spent, there's new units here, but there's probably a good $15, $20 million in the front buildings. So when you look at what it took, you had to repurpose these buildings to make them viable financially. And so there's a pride in this from everybody involved, because this is San Antonio. I mean, how many cities have a 300-year-old mission and a neighborhood that's been active for 300 years? There's a few, but not many. And so the other thing the drone shot didn't show, which I'm gonna get reshot, is we're within half a mile of the river, the Mission Reach, all the trails. We're 2 miles from downtown. We're right off of Highway 90. And there's all kinds of stuff that are happening in the neighborhood independent of us. There's a little place called Lonjas, which won as the best restaurant in San Antonio on Conde Nast a year ago. And I was in San Francisco when I saw it, and I thought, well, who could that be? And when I saw it was Lonjas, which is a little place that makes carnitas 2 blocks away, I loved it because it's authentic. And so when you look at all these historic buildings, what we try to do is we're not changing them. We just repurpose them. When you look at, plenty of the rules are clear on historic structures, you have to maintain them. But when you go by and see it, I'd love for you guys to drive by. We're adding lighting to the trees. We're adding just little features that make this a resort style kind of lifestyle. Though, you know, it isn't that. It is a very urban lifestyle. But it's unique. It's something we're proud of. And I think I'm going to stop talking and let people ask questions or hand it back to Sandy. I don't know who's going to take it over from here. I want to thank you all, first of all, for listening to us.
Yeah, thank you for being our presenters today. It's just an extraordinary property, and to see the transformation, the before and the after, it's impressive isn't even the right word for it. You all have done a spectacular job of that. You know, we highlight the project today as an urban redevelopment project, and how is that maybe different or unique to some of the other projects that you all have done, looking at focusing on urban redevelopment? What kind of unique challenges maybe that you faced during that process?
Well, I can tell you, and I'm sure all the professionals on this presentation know this, it's so much easier to build from scratch. I mean, the cost, the uncertainty. You can do firm bids with a contractor that bills, you know, straight up, and it's pretty straightforward, and you make money. These projects, you have to do a lot of work. This is now in its 7th year. So it's not just the cost of the construction, it's the cost, it's the carrying cost, it's your overhead. So you got to be committed to this to make it happen. Now, the final product's worth it, but there's a few times along the way where you scratch your head and say, ugh. So for a developer, we can do 1 or 2 of these deals every couple of years, but we really need to do 4 or 5 other deals that are standard deals to make sure that we have the bandwidth to take, and I don't know if it's risk, it's really the costs, the time it takes. So the number of participants in this transaction is I don't even want to tell you how many attorneys were involved, because each participant had 2 or 3 attorneys. Now, I'm an attorney myself, so I'm not speaking out of turn there too much, but it was a lot. But again, historic structures in places like San Antonio, this is our heritage. And I'm not talking about the physical, I'm talking about us as a people. We take pride in who we are, and we take pride in this history. And the history, not just the Spanish, it's the Native Americans, it's the Polish, the Germans, all the folks, the Texans, the French, all the different eras that go back in time. That's what San Antonio celebrates. This happens to be the church, which has owned this literally for 300 years. And when the title search on this was pretty easy. It's the Pope or the Archbishop.
That's interesting. And so I guess, you know, as far as when you look at a project this extensive and you think of the age of the property, and how long did it sit vacant?
It was vacant for about 20 years or so. It
Wow.
got purpose after the school a couple of times. It was different programs, but as the money ran out, they would abandon parts of the building. So I would say the entire complex has not been used effectively for more than 30, 40 years. I can't remember the dates exactly, but it was in the 70s and 80s that it began to go down. And then once it got out of control where you couldn't manage the buildings because of air conditioning costs or whatever, it almost, like I said, it almost burned down twice.
Wow. And I guess as you kind of went through the process and the 7 years in your planning and redevelopment of the property, you know, what were some of your biggest successes along the way as far as working with the city, working with the archdiocese, and where have you found kind of your biggest successes along the way there?
You know, Dave, and I'll let Dave jump in here also. Dave alluded to it. Neighborhood, we have to celebrate the neighborhood, because had they not wanted this, it would never have happened. Now, clearly the historic offices, the city, the UNESCO, all those have to cooperate. But if you don't have the lady who just moved in, who's lived in this neighborhood for 50 years, if you don't have them on your side, you will fail. And that requires you to spend a lot of time. We're the big bad developers, and we have ulterior motives. And some of us do. I mean, I'm not going to argue that, you know, sometimes projects are done without any regard to who's lived there for a long time. So we had a lot of talking and communicating and convincing to do. And that's why it was so important for us to invite the neighborhood in for a VIP tour out of respect. Henry and I have done this in Chicago and New York and all the projects in Detroit, projects we've done there. Respect goes a long way, but it's got to be earnest. It can't be false. People see through you. And so, and I'm not making myself out as an angel, because, you know, I do want to make money in this project, but we got to respect the neighborhood, and without them, we would have failed. And the congregation of Mission Concepcion, which is literally from the corner of that building to Mission Concepcion, it's 20 yards.
Wow. And so you have a long-term, I guess, partnership there with the church, with the property, and kind of the commitment to one another throughout the project. And you mentioned the long-term lease that you have with them.
25 years, yeah. And you can't tell from the photographs, but adjacent to it is 2 properties they kept behind, which is going to become a pilgrimage center. It's going to be a center for weddings, but also to celebrate all of the other missions. It'll be a starting point for kind of tours of the UNESCO missions. And it's a big deal. UNESCO, what we received there, the World Heritage Site, is a big, big deal. People from all the world travel to UNESCO sites to see them. And I've already seen people looking around the area who are definitely not from the US. I mean, they're from other countries looking for the mission. So we have something very unique that we've gotten pretty used to, but we should celebrate how unique they are.
Well, you all have done a phenomenal job of preserving that and revitalizing that. And we appreciate you taking the time to walk us through kind of the inspiration behind that, kind of how you put that deal together, what that looked like, and talk through some of your successes and challenges along the way. I'll just do one more quick question. You know, as we all are maneuvering through our new environment, if you will, and how we do business, you know, looking from a property management perspective, what is it that you all are doing maybe differently today from a property management position that maybe you weren't doing a year ago?
You know, I got to give credit to Freddie and Celine and the team. They have done exactly what I said about respecting the neighborhood. So Celine and Freddie, why don't you talk about that a bit? Because, you know, you guys are seeing folks every day face to face. Talk about the people that you're dealing with, please. I can't hear you, Celine. I think we lost your phone connection.
Well, I'll take a little of that, Victor, if you want me to.
Yeah, please.
The neighborhood is super excited. People are moving in there. A lot of them, this maybe is their first apartment ever. Some of these units are income average down to 30% of AMI, which means if you're making $20,000 a month, or $20,000 a year, you're getting an apartment for about $325 a month for a brand new Class A apartment with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. The clubhouse is spectacular. It used to be the theater, obviously. They put in a huge drop screen. You can watch whatever you want, Hulu, Netflix. There's a gym. There's a very nice business center. It's got all the Class A amenities. It's actually nicer than some of the market rate apartments that we build, because the low-income housing tax credit system requires a number of support elements that are introduced here. So there's after-school programs. There's medical services. There's a lot of amenities that you just don't get in a standard market rate apartment complex. This is maybe the nicest mixed income affordable housing project I've ever seen. We've already won 3 awards for it. As I mentioned, the Power Preservation Award. We won the Conservation Society's the built-in award for the built environment. And the San Antonio Business Journal recently awarded us with the Build San Antonio 2020 Best Affordable Multifamily Housing Project in San Antonio. Next year, we'll be shooting for the ULI Jack Kemp Award, which is obviously the #1 award in the country. We got a good shot at it. It's really an amazing project. If anybody wants to come see it in person, social distancing required, but I'd be happy to give anybody a tour anytime. You can reach out to me. My email is real easy. It's david@missiondg.com, or give me a call. And a lot of you have my phone number. If you don't, it's 212-464-7381. And we're real proud. I'd be happy to take you out there anytime. Thank you.
Celine and Freddie, are you?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, great. I have a special tie to this side of town. I did live right up off of Hackberry and Halliday. I went to Page Middle School and Wheatley for just a short amount of time. But I have one of my greatest memories here is when we got that really heavy snowfall. I was 13 years old and used to ride my bike through the neighborhood. So every time I drive through here or come into the area, there's just there's something special about it. There's a memory everywhere. So the neighborhood to me is not just another place to live, or another place to drive by. It actually means something. It's like that resident that I'd spoken about. She lived in the neighborhood for 50 years and watched this property go from being active to then all of a sudden not functioning anymore, not being what it was meant to be, and then seeing it resurrected. And she liked it so much that she decided to come and live here. So we have those great residents around the neighborhood that just were just waiting for something to happen. But that's my tie here. I did live for a good long while here on the south side, and I love it.
Thank you. Well, we'll stop talking now and let you take your program back.
Well, thank you so very much. And again, congratulations on some very well-deserved accolades, and best of luck with the big award with next year then. Certainly, what a great property to be a contender for that with. David, thank you for sharing your contact information. If you're okay with it, we'll also maybe include that in our follow-up communications to our membership. We do have a recording of today's presentation that we would be delighted to share with our membership team, and we'll include that with it. And we just sincerely thank Victor, David, Celine, and Freddie and your for the preservation of such a wonderful property with architecture and culture. It's so important to all of us here in San Antonio and to our group at Crew SA. So thank you again, and all the best. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.